Part 3 of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Stardust Crusaders. Now, in the midst of so-so coloring, half-baked villains, and actually pretty good set of main characters, you're gonna have holes. Now, not the holes caused by Justice, Wheel of Fortune, or Vanilla Ice, but the holes caused by writing. But here's the thing with holes. You don't really know how deep it is unless you look into it, I think. So, me and xForts are going to be looking into the most known plot holes and explain how there's some sense. There's 2 parts of this video and the other part is going to be on xForts channel, so check that out right after. But now let's get into these holes. I wish that sounded better. So a very common question is, how did Joseph not die after being drained by Dio? We also had seen his soul go to the land of Jobro, so how exactly did he come back? Well, this is a good question commonly asked after watching part 4, because we had seen Josuke's grandfather die even though he had just been restored. In a part 3 perspective, it makes sense, refilling the blood that was taken, and this is also a mix of vampire and Hamon blood, both having regenerative capabilities, and the last thing that was needed was a restart on his heart. This isn't in order of what was needed to revive Joseph because it's actually reversed when stating them. Jotaro had learned how to restart the heart in the fight with Dio, and it was an element incorporated with Joseph's death in mind. JoJo also had been originally more realistic when it came to earlier parts, and I know how the word realistic in JoJo sounds ridiculous when you first approach it, but it actually makes sense when you connect the dots. For example, there's things that wouldn't be feasible in the world of part 3, but later on become very much real when going on into later parts. Or vice versa, because in other parts you can't really revive someone with their soul if their soul has already passed. Now, is it to contradict the past parts, or is it just because Araki had forgot that he had done things previously? Well, Araki states that he doesn't have the best memory really, but for the sake of art, I'll say that he makes it contradict on purpose, except when it comes to Joseph versus Josuke's grandfather, because that element in part 4 was really all for the final fight where it seemed that Okuyasu had died. So, to sum it all up, Joseph had been revived because of Jotaro learning something he has never seen or even thought was possible. Hamon and vampire blood is good for you, and the reason for it all was to connect points in the plot. And it doesn't make sense in later parts, because in those parts they're meant to contradict the previous ones. Now the next one is going to be covered by xForts.
So there was always one thing that bothered me about Stardust Crusaders ending, and it wasn't until reading part 6 did this plot hole come to my attention. Where the hell was Pucci during part 3? Okay, so I know that these videos are all about just part 3, so I will keep this segment as spoiler free as possible, just that Pucci knew Dio and that Pucci's stand is Whitesnake, a very powerful stand. So Araki took a bit of a gamble in part 6 and risked retconning pretty much Dio's entire character and some events from part 3, as it was pretty clear that the role Dio played in part 6 was not even conceptualized during the time of part 3's creation, but in the end, I think Araki was successful at bringing Dio back into the story and introducing new lore and motives for Dio's character. So in 1987, Dio, hiding from sunlight in a church in America, meets Enrico Pucci and gives him an arrowhead that would later be drawn to him and grant him his stand Whitesnake, the ability to steal memories and stands in the form of discs. Dio and Pucci would become good friends throughout the few years that they knew each other and would often visit each other, sometimes Dio coming to America to visit Pucci and sometimes Pucci going to Egypt to visit Dio. But most importantly, they shared a common goal: to achieve heaven. So with Stardust Crusaders taking place in 1989 and Dio and Pucci's relationship truly forming just a year before that in 1988, it would make sense for Pucci to have been part of Dio's alliance as some sort of a Vanilla Ice type character, but even closer to Dio. I mean, Pucci really would have come in handy too, having the ability to steal stands and all, but to explain the lack of Pucci in part 3, Dio might not have wanted Pucci involved in this part of his life, as Dio and Pucci were taking their lives in a new direction trying to attain heaven, and Dio viewed the Joestar bloodline as nothing but a lingering piece of the past that would be very easily dealt with and just a loose end to tie off in his life. And considering how confident Dio was, it might not have even crossed his mind to have his friend involved, no matter how powerful their stand may be. Or possibly even Dio knew deep down that he was afraid of the Joestars and their prevailing nature, and didn't want to risk having anything happen to Pucci, as no matter what happened to Dio, Pucci would still be able to carry out their mission. But the most realistic explanation for why Pucci wasn't in part 3? Honestly, Araki probably hadn't even thought of Pucci's character yet.
So this one's going to be a really puzzling one, and I'm pretty sure we're not going to get an answer for this on the future of JoJo. It's going to be one of those things that actually ended up being left for the fans to figure out, and that's how Jotaro and Dio can both stop time. The world is known for its ability of stopping time, But how can Star Platinum stop time? How are they the same stand?
Some people say that Star Platinum and the world being the same type of stand is an asshole or deus ex machina, as we come to learn throughout the series that all stands are unique, and this is true, except for when it's not. Some of the final stand users the Crusaders encounter in the part have the same type of stand, the Darby brothers, and they are blood relatives. And since a majority of Dio is Jonathan, a blood relative of Jotaro, wouldn't it make sense for it to be possible that they have the same type of stand? And for the final battle and conclusion of the Joestar and Brando rivalry, I thought having both Jotaro and Dio have the same abilities worked out well and made for an intense and enjoyable fight considering how evenly matched they were. The final fight going any other way than Jotaro quite literally invading Dio's world just wouldn't have felt the same. So for Star Platinum and the world to have the same type of ability and be the same type of stand, I don't see it as very implausible. And I think it makes perfect sense in the series even at face value. But I'm sure that Caleb has a much better and interesting explanation for their overlap in abilities.
I believe that the reasoning in Star Platinum and the world being the same stand lays in the tarot cards. The tarot cards were a huge element of Part 3 that had been an inspiration for writing characters and how they were developed. For example, you can refer to my Polner video. But focusing on the star and the world tarot cards, the star symbolizes hope, spirituality, renewal, and inspiration. The world symbolizes completion, integration, and accomplishment. Also, Tokyo Tomori. The star reverse symbolizes a lack of faith, despair, and discouragement. The world reverse symbolizes a lack of completion and a lack of closure. Individually, you can see how the symbolizations can reflect on a character's attributes and how some were the downfall of a character. You have Dio, who had seemed a lot stronger due to him believing he was full and complete, but that actually wasn't the case at all and ended up being the death of him. Then there's Jotaro, who was always angry and confident, but started to lose when he didn't believe in himself as much. So taking that into account, can we get a meaning if we put the star and the world together? Apparently, yeah, we can. Reason why is because he goes from Star Platinum to Star Platinum the world. So when you put the two together, you actually get a large boost of inspiration. No limits in your luck, future, fate, and you get all that you ever wanted. Which, taking this into account, means that Star Platinum turning into Star Platinum the world was a device of fate for Jotaro. We know that Dio is always fated to lose, even if it does take a long time. If I was to put perspective on it, first picture Dio. He's just in awe, like, Star Platinum and the world are the same stand. Why? Then both Jotaro and Araki are drawn in and point at Dio and just say, "'Cause screw you, that's why." And I can't really vouch for the fate in JoJo always, but it helps clean up a lot of the messes inside of it. Except when you get to Eyes of Heaven, because that's just something you want to be deeper than what it actually is, but it just isn't. Some stuff in JoJo just can't be answered with, "It's just like that, cuz," but this is one of the things that can be. Except it's not really just because, it's just a deus ex machina that will forever be embedded, which we can't write it off because it's a thing that very much exists, so it's just more on accepting it. The fate in JoJo is just something that exists and you have to just agree with it for the most part and just leave it alone at that, I guess. So thank you guys for watching, and yes, it's kind of a mock, it's really confusing when it comes to that, and I wouldn't really know much to say, to be honest with you, if I was just like, oh man, fate, JoJo, that's kind of a weird thing, but it's a very much real factor, so taking that into account, I could actually go in depth with speaking on it and information and all that stuff, but just that's for later on topics. So thank you so much for xForts for coming out here. This is where you guys go head over to his channel, go see what we did there. We went over like 3 more things too, so there's that. And thank you guys so much for watching. There's a lot of content I got here. There's character analysis, this and that. You guys already know the deal for the people that's already subbed. But thank you guys so much for watching. This has been Caleb. So until the next one, peace out and Godspeed.